Every night, millions of people reach for that little capsule on their nightstand, Magnesium, the internet's favorite sleep supplement. Influencers swear by it. Wellness brands sell it in pastel packaging with pictures of moons and lavender. And you probably bought a bottle at some point because someone told you it would knock you out naturally. Here's the part nobody mentions. That pill you are swallowing may never even reach your brain. It might be sitting in your gut, doing absolutely nothing for your sleep and everything for your next trip to the bathroom. Most people believe magnesium is a gentle, risk-free sleep aid that works for everyone. The biology tells a different story. Magnesium does interact with real sleep circuitry in your brain. That part is true. But clinical trials show meaningful sleep benefits almost exclusively in people who are already deficient. If your magnesium levels are fine, the effect is barely a blip, and the form most people buy, magnesium oxide, has roughly 4% absorption. 4%. The rest passes right through you, so you have a supplement with a legitimate brain mechanism that most people are taking in a form that never reaches the brain, for a problem it may not even solve in their specific body. That is not a miracle. That is a marketing gap. Today we are going strictly by the biology and the clinical trial data. No wellness ideology, no brand promotion. We are taking the 5 biggest claims people make about nighttime magnesium and confronting each one with the actual mechanism and the actual evidence. By the end, you will understand exactly how magnesium talks to your brain's sleep circuitry, which forms genuinely absorb into your system, which people actually benefit, and where the line sits between helpful supplement and real medical risk. Let's put the first claim under the microscope. Your brain has 2 competing chemical systems that control whether you stay awake or fall asleep. One is the accelerator. That is glutamate, the main excitatory signal in your nervous system. It keeps neurons firing, keeps you alert, keeps your thoughts racing at 2 in the morning when you desperately want them to stop. The other is the brake. That is GABA, your brain's primary inhibitory signal. GABA tells neurons to slow down, reduce their firing rate, and let the conscious mind quiet. Every night, falling asleep is essentially your brain shifting from accelerator to brake. Magnesium works on both sides of that equation. It binds to GABA receptors and makes them more sensitive, so the braking signal gets amplified. At the same time, it blocks NMDA receptors, which are the docking stations for glutamate. Less excitatory signal gets through. More inhibitory signal lands. The accelerator weakens while the brake gets stronger. That dual action is not folk medicine. Those GABA receptors magnesium binds to are the exact same receptor family targeted by prescription sleep drugs like Ambien and benzodiazepines like Valium. Magnesium is gentler, far less potent, but it is knocking on the same door. On top of that, magnesium helps regulate your HPA axis, the stress command center that controls cortisol release. When cortisol is elevated at night, your brain reads it as a threat signal. Sleep onset stalls. Magnesium helps dial that down, so the mechanism is real, the pharmacology is legitimate. The question is, who actually gets to benefit from it? Here is where the story splits in 2. In clinical trials with older adults who are clearly magnesium deficient, supplementation improved how quickly they fell asleep, how long they stayed asleep, and even their blood levels of melatonin. Real, measurable changes. But in studies of adults with normal magnesium levels, the improvements were tiny. Barely distinguishable from placebo in most cases. The supplement works best when it is filling a hole that already exists. Think of it like watering a dehydrated plant versus dumping water on one that is already soaked. The dehydrated plant springs back to life. The soaked one just drowns. The uncomfortable truth is that roughly half the population may actually have that hole. About 50% of Americans consume less magnesium than the estimated average requirement. Subclinical deficiency is common, But here is the catch. Your standard blood test is almost useless for detecting it. Serum magnesium, which is what gets measured in routine blood work, reflects only about 1% of the total magnesium in your body. The other 99% lives inside your cells and locked in your bones. You could be meaningfully deficient at the cellular level, and your lab results would come back perfectly normal. So, who is most likely to be running low? People over 50, because absorption declines with age. People who drink alcohol regularly, because alcohol increases magnesium excretion through your kidneys. People on proton pump inhibitors, the common acid reflux medications, because those drugs reduce magnesium absorption in the gut. People with type 2 diabetes, because insulin resistance alters magnesium handling. And people under chronic stress, because cortisol burns through magnesium faster. If none of those apply to you and your diet includes plenty of leafy greens, nuts, and whole grains, magnesium supplementation for sleep may do very little. But even if you are a good candidate, there is a second problem. The pill you bought probably cannot do the job. Bioavailability is a fancy word for a simple idea: how much of what you swallow actually makes it into your bloodstream and reaches the tissue that needs it. For magnesium, this number varies wildly depending on the chemical form. Magnesium oxide is the most common form on store shelves. It is cheap to manufacture, and it packs a high amount of elemental magnesium per pill, which looks great on the label. The problem is, your gut absorbs roughly 4% of it. 4%. The other 96% stays in your intestines, pulls water in through osmosis, and sends you to the bathroom. You are not supplementing your brain, you are supplementing your toilet. Magnesium citrate is better, around 16% absorption. But at higher doses, it still draws water into the gut and causes the same issue. Magnesium glycinate is where things get interesting. It absorbs well, causes minimal GI distress, and the glycine it is bonded to is itself an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So you're getting magnesium plus a molecule that independently supports calm. 2 for 1. Then there is magnesium L-threonate. This form was specifically designed to cross the blood-brain barrier more effectively. Animal studies show it actually raises magnesium concentration in the brain, not just in the blood. If the goal is getting magnesium to the neurons that regulate sleep, threonate has the most targeted data behind it. Most people do not know any of this. They grab the cheapest bottle, see a big number on the label, and assume they are covered. The label does not tell you that the magnesium inside may never leave your digestive tract. Now the stakes change. Everything so far has been about effectiveness. Does it work? For whom? In what form? But magnesium also has a ceiling, and crossing it does not just waste your money. It can hurt you. The tolerable upper limit for supplemental magnesium is 350 milligrams per day. That is supplemental, separate from what you get through food. Go above 400 milligrams of poorly absorbed forms like oxide or citrate, and osmotic diarrhea becomes common. Uncomfortable, but not dangerous. The real danger is in a population that overlaps heavily with the people most likely to take this supplement. About 15% of American adults have some degree of chronic kidney disease. Many of them do not know it. Your kidneys are the main exit route for excess magnesium. When they are working normally, they flush out whatever you do not need. When kidney function is impaired, magnesium accumulates in the blood. The progression is predictable and grim. Serum magnesium above 4 milligrams per deciliter and you lose your deep tendon reflexes. Above 6 and your heart rate drops, your blood pressure falls. Above 12 and the heart can stop entirely. The cruel irony is that the group most drawn to magnesium for sleep, older adults dealing with stress and poor rest, is the same group most likely to have undiagnosed kidney decline. So where does this leave you? The honest verdict, stripped of marketing and stripped of fear. Magnesium glycinate or threonate dosed between 200 and 350 milligrams, taken 30 to 60 minutes before bed, carries the best balance of evidence and safety for sleep support. The strongest case for benefit exists if you are over 50, under chronic stress, or carry any of the deficiency risk factors we covered. The weakest case is if you are young, well-nourished, and sleeping poorly for reasons that have nothing to do with mineral status. Magnesium does not replace good sleep habits. It does not replace addressing the actual root cause of chronic insomnia. It is one input into a complex system, and it works best when that system actually needs it. So here is where you stand. Magnesium is not a miracle, and it is not a scam. It is a real molecule with a real mechanism that hits real receptors in your brain. The pharmacology is legitimate, but pharmacology alone does not make something effective for you specifically. The benefit is gated. Your deficiency status is the first gate. The form you choose is the second. The dose you take is the third. And if your kidneys are not filtering at full capacity, that third gate becomes a wall. If you decide magnesium is worth trying, glycinate or threonate at 200 to 350 milligrams, 30 to 60 minutes before bed. If you are over 50, if you take acid reflux medication, if you drink regularly, if you are under chronic stress, you are more likely to be someone this actually helps. If none of those apply and your diet is solid, the honest answer is that the evidence for noticeable sleep improvement is thin. And magnesium is not a stand-in for the basics: a consistent sleep schedule, managing light exposure in the evening, addressing the actual reason you cannot sleep. Those still matter more than any capsule. Think back to that pill on your nightstand. You now know something most people never bother to learn. You know, whether what is inside that capsule can cross into your brain or just pass through your gut. You know whether your body is the kind that benefits or the kind that barely notices. You know where the ceiling is and what happens when you cross it. That is the difference between taking a supplement and understanding one.